All right, everyone, I think we're going to get started. So thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to the Kerber Rose Overcoming Debt and Building Wealth webinar hosted by Alex Miller. We're excited you could all be here with us today to learn more about achieving financial peace and creating a plan for your money. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items to keep track of. There is a Q&A feature available. It'll be located by the settings and info buttons, which can be used to ask Alex any questions throughout the presentation. But don't worry if your question doesn't get answered right away. We'll be doing an after the fact, Q&A setup, and we do have space at the end designated for all of the questions to be answered. We want to remind everyone today that the presentation will be recorded and made available for later viewing. So watch your emails in the coming week for the link to the recording and any follow-up, discussion questions that need to be answered that weren't addressed in the webinar. Now that we have those basic items covered, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our presenter for today, Alex Miller, a financial wellness advocate and author of the Beautifully Frugal Blog. We'll be discussing how her family of 6 went from living from paycheck to paying off $37,000 in 15 months and other financial wellness tips. Alex has been with Kerber Rose for close to 3 years, has professional experience with what it is like to struggle with finances, and specializes in creating budgets and encouraging clients to meet their long-term financial goals. She also has recently passed her Series 65 licensing exam and will be added to our list of advisors here at Kerber Rose in the future. Without further ado, I'd like to hand this over to Alex so she can kick off the presentation for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. I just want to confirm that you guys can see my screen. Are we good to go? Yes, no, maybe. Lauren. Oh, no.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, good. So thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you all for coming today to my webinar of our personal story of how my family went from living paycheck to overcoming that and building wealth. So on that note, let's get started. So this is kind of where we started. And this picture is super deceiving because we look so happy, and it was obviously Christmas. You can see us in our Christmas jammies a few years ago, and we look happy, but on the inside, we were drowning. We were very stressed. We had no savings. We had $37,000 worth of debt, and we were living paycheck to paycheck. And honestly, this was a rock bottom moment for us. Although we look super happy, pictures are always deceiving, right? This was truly a rock bottom moment for our family, because shortly after Christmas this particular year, I went to open up our bank account app and we only had $80 left in our checkings account. And for me personally, being the one, so at the time, to give you a little bit of picture of where we were at, we were a single income family. I was a stay-at-home mom. You can see my kids were super young at the time. They're still pretty young, but younger than they are now. Single income family. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I am a spender. Like, I love to spend money. I mean, who doesn't, right? And especially when it comes to Christmas, Christmas is my jam. I am rocking my Christmas sweater today. It's something that I live for. I love being able to give my kids the world, but because of my misjudgments when it came to our budget, I got our family into a very sticky situation where we couldn't afford our next bill. And I had no idea what to do because it was directly my fault. I mean, sure, my husband could probably come in there and say, hey, I should have been part of these discussions. But in reality, he was trusting me with the household management, and that included managing our budget. And I failed and felt really, really bad that I put our family into that situation. So in our rock bottom moment, I had to figure out how in the world am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to get us out of that? But there are so many things out there with financial gurus talk about what to prioritize, and that is what I'm going to talk about next. So I always like to do my messy house analogy here, because For me personally, I've got really young kids at home, and I'm sure some of you guys do as well. I can never keep my house clean. There's always dishes in my sink. There's always things on the counter, the floor. There's toys everywhere. The bathroom hasn't been cleaned in a few days. Like, who has time to make this house a tidy home? Not me personally. So kind of with our finances, like, what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize building an emergency fund, paying off your debt, your kids' college, saving for retirement? Like, I would argue that all of these things are really good things and they all should be prioritized equally, but how do you do that? So when I did personal research on, financial gurus out there who talks about things like this, I liked a little bit of everything. So I had to come up with a plan that worked best for me and my family to get our messy house a tidy home. And on that note, I'm going to talk about the very first step we did to get our family out of that predicament. And that is to save $1,000 in a starter emergency fund. Okay. This doesn't seem like a lot of money, and it shouldn't, because it's not, right? And that's why I emphasize this is a starter emergency fund. This is just something, it's a bit of a buffer between you and something minor happening in your life that you don't have to stress about, okay? This could be the transmission of your car going, or plumbing that needs to be fixed in your home, where you can say, oh, it's okay, I have $1,000 saved. We're just going to take care of it. We'll build that $1,000 back up, and then we're going to get to cranking on our next financial goal that we have here. And I also want to say that when I started researching about personal finances, I came across a very scary statistic, okay? And I'm going to share it. And this was pre-COVID. I'm sure that it's changed now. But while I was researching, I came across that 69% of Americans don't have $1,000 in an emergency fund at all. 69%. That is so sad to me, because that means 69% of America can't afford your typical unexpected small expense. And when I realized that, I realized, like, whoa, this is, I was the norm, right? I was the norm. We were $37,000 worth of debt. We had no savings, and that was normal. And I realized that I don't want to be normal, okay? So I decided that I was going to stop being normal and I was going to change our circumstances. So we saved $1,000, which was a very big deal for our family. And it's crazy to say this, but our family had never saved $1,000 before. So having four numbers in our bank account was a very big deal to our family. So we put $1,000 away. We didn't touch it, only if it was for emergencies. We made a pact to not touch it unless it was for emergencies. And then we moved on to the next thing, which was to pay off all of our debt. That $37,000, we are going to go back to that. And I want to give you a little bit of a picture of what this looked like for my husband and I. So we sat down one night after the kiddos went to bed. We got all of our statements from all of our debts. This included credit cards, medical debt, student loans. We also had a personal loan we took out because we had to refinish the basement, which was just a big mistake in and of itself. But we listed all of our debts. And some financial gurus will tell you to use like the snowball method or the debt avalanche method. They're both basically the same thing, except the debt snowball method wants you to list your debts from smallest balance to the lowest or the largest balance. And the avalanche method has you list your debts from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. And mathematically, that makes a lot of sense, right? But if you're anything like me, a person who needs instant gratification, I had to feel like I was doing something. And when I pay off small debts, I feel like I'm doing something, and it builds momentum to continue the process and to trust that this is going to work. So we listed our debts from smallest to largest. We paid the minimum payments on all of them except the smallest one. And on that smallest one, you are attacking it like your life depends on it, okay? So what this looks like for my family. Our smallest debt at the time was our basement loan that we decided to take out. And I think the repayment was about $200. So We were paying minimum payments on every single one of our smallest debt, and our basement loan, we were attacking it like our life depended on it. Any extra money that we could find, any extra overtime, any extra house cleaning projects that I could do for cash for other people was going on this basement loan. And when that loan was paid off, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I have $200 extra in my budget, I'm going to go spend it, which was my knee-jerk reaction, we had to say, no, we're going to put that $200 on the next smallest debt. So on top of the minimum payment paying on the next smallest debt, we're putting $200 on top of it. And when you start to do this, you start to pay off your debt very quickly, which is why we were able to pay off all of our debt in such a short period of time, because this is the process that we were using that worked best for us. And let me tell you, the feeling of freedom you have when you pay off your last debt is a freedom that I want for every single person that I talk to if they're drowning in debt. I know what it feels like to be drowning in debt. I know what it feels like to have all of your income going to someone other than yourself, and I do not want that for you, okay? So if anything, I hope that this is encouraging. And this doesn't have to be what you do. This is a very customizable plan, and you can do whatever works best for you. If the avalanche makes more sense to you and you're willing to stick with it, like, do it that way. If that's not the way you think that you can operate, then do it this way. It doesn't matter. As long as you stick to a financial plan and you see it through, it will work for you. So what do you do after you pay off all of your debt? Well, we are going to go back to that fully funded back to that starter emergency fund, and we are going to make that a fully funded emergency fund. A fully funded emergency fund is anywhere from 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. This is the things that are going to cover job losses or your car breaking down or tragic events that are bound to happen in your life that are already upsetting enough that I don't want you to be any stressed out by adding a financial burden to your plate. So this is why a fully funded emergency fund is so important, okay? And I have a funny little story here. So we didn't have to use a heck of a lot of our starter emergency fund when we were paying off all of our debt because we paid it off so quickly. But of course, Murphy's Law, when we fully funded our emergency fund, about 3 months after, my husband's car was bound to break down. It was bound to die. We knew it was going to die. We knew this was coming, but we just decided to put it off as long as possible. He called me. This was 3 months after we fully funded our emergency fund, and he said, hey, honey, it happened. My car broke down. It died. We're going to need to get me a new car. And my knee-jerk reaction was to say, oh my gosh. No, and start to have anxiety and start a little mini freak out of how are we going to afford this, and we can't take out a loan, and we just paid off our debt, and da 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 da. And he had to bring me back and say, hey, wait. We worked hard to build our emergency fund. We're going to use our emergency fund. We're going to pay cash for our car. And that's exactly what we did. And let me tell you that having a fully funded emergency fund took what could have been a catastrophic event for our family potentially and making it just a small minor molehill. So testament, fully funded emergency fund, you have to have one. If you don't have one, you need to get one. It's super, super helpful on your financial journey. So on that note, what do you do when you've paid off all of your debt and you have a fully funded emergency fund? What are you going to do with all of this extra money that you have in your pocket? Well, we are going to start investing 15% of it into retirement, baby. And let me tell you, if you are not interested in investing, I hope that I can get you interested, because this is so, so important, okay? And I want to let you know that when I was researching our personal finances and paying off our debt and the reasons why having 3 to 6 months of expenses put away is important, I read that the average Social Security check in America, when you go to retire, the average Social Security check is $1,200 a month. That means the government is only going to pay you $600 bi-weekly to live. Now, if you are like me, and when you hear that and you're like, whoa, I need more than that to live. Like, I can't even live on that now. Then you need to start saving for retirement, because if there's one thing I can tell you, it's that the government's not going to take care of you when you're older. You need to take care of you when you're older. So that is why investing for retirement is so important. So how can we invest into retirement? First thing we can do is we can take advantage of our employer 401ks if they offer a match. Definitely take advantage of those. They're super great tools and resources to help you meet your retirement goals. The second thing we can do is we can invest in a Roth IRA. Now, my coworkers always make fun of me because I love a Roth IRA. It is one of my favorite things to invest in. I'm always telling my friends and my family, like, don't forget to max out your Roth IRA. So if you don't know what a Roth IRA is, it is a retirement account that uses after-tax dollars, okay? And it grows tax-free. That means the government can't touch your money when you are ready to withdraw it. And if there is something that any advisor loves, it is when we love when the government can't touch our money. That's a huge deal to us. So a lot of advisors across the board will tell you to take advantage of a Roth IRA if you qualify for it. And also advisors across the board will tell you that investing 15% of your income into retirement is a good goal to reach for that will make it so you can meet your retirement goals in the future. The third way that you can also invest into retirement is just to use a traditional IRA, which is kind of similar to the 401k as it uses pre-tax dollars, but the Roth and traditional have a max of $6,000 per year for either of them, not both. You can't do both together, either or you can choose to invest in, and it's $6,000, whichever one you decide to choose, maximum that you can contribute for the year. So after you pay off your debt, after you save a fully funded emergency fund, we are going to start continuously every month, every paycheck, investing 15% of our income into retirement. And I also want to kind of reiterate here that having your starter emergency fund, paying off your debt, and building your fully funded emergency funds are all things that we're doing quickly so we can move on to the next thing. Like, we're quickly racing to get a starter emergency fund. We're quickly racing to get all this debt paid off, and then we're going to quickly race to get that fully funded emergency fund. Investing is a marathon, okay? It is something that you're continuously doing until you decide to retire. This is not something that you go, and then you stop like the first three things that we did. This is something that's ongoing. So we're going to continuously be investing 15% of our income into retirement. So on that note, I have a little example here that I created. I want you guys to meet Susie. She is 30 years old. She's debt-free with a fully funded emergency fund. Her income is $60,000 a year, and her employer offers a 3% match. So what should Susie do to meet that 15% retirement goal that I just got done talking about? The first thing she should do is she should put 3% of her money away to the employer match at her 401k. The next thing that she should do is she should max out her Roth IRA, that after-tax account that I just got done talking about, and put $6,000 in it, which would make her have 10% contributing to the Roth IRA. So if you do the math here, Susie is only at 13% investing. So what is she going to do with the other 2%? Well, what I would tell her to do is go back to her employer 401k contributions and up that by 2%, bringing her total investing to 15%. So on that note, on my next slide here, let's see what would happen with Susie if she strictly only invested in a Roth IRA. So what I'm going to show you is a hypothetical illustration of the American Balanced Fund. And here's the ticker down here that you can see. You can look this up on your own time. This is the history of the American Balanced Fund over the last 30 years. From 1991, you see here when it started, to 2021. An American Balanced Fund isn't super aggressive and it's not super conservative. It's kind of right in the middle. So this is kind of like, the minimum, the typical average you would be investing in the American Balanced Fund, okay? Let's say Susie put an initial investment of $6,000 into this Roth IRA account that we just got done talking about that can be completely tax-free, okay? Initial investment of $6,000, and then after that, she continuously invests $500 once a month, okay? So that's maxing out her Roth IRA every single year for 30 years, only putting $500 a month. You guys, the average car payment in America is $500, okay? If you just got rid of that car payment and you put that money in a Roth IRA over a 30-year period, you would have a final account balance of $1 million. You guys, I literally just told you how you can become a millionaire with a Roth IRA. It is crazy. And you want to know what's even more crazy about this is her net amount invested is only $192,000, you guys. This black line here, this is what she invested. This is the growth. This is crazy to me. This is something that really excites me. We share this with our clients all the time. If you are not even 30 years old yet, I'm here to tell you that there's still plenty of time for you to be investing and living your retirement dreams in the future. And if you want to know more about any of this stuff, you guys can always feel free to email me after this webinar. I'd be happy to share this with you and answer any questions that you have as well. So, what do you do after you've saved your emergency fund, you've paid off your debt, and now you're continuously investing 15% of your money into retirement? Well, we are going to start worrying about these kids and them going to school. So a 529 is a great way to utilize that. A 529 account is a lot like a Roth IRA where it uses after-tax dollars and it grows tax-free and can be used on qualified educational expenses. Now, I want to say that I get a lot of hate that I start saving for my kids after I've started saving for myself because that's not the norm. Again, I'm here to tell you that I don't want to be normal. I know this isn't the norm, and I just want to give you a little illustration of why I think, and this is me, like this is super customizable. If you don't want to do it this way, this is not the end all be all. You can totally switch things around, but I want to give you a little bit of an illustration as to why it made sense for me and my family to personally start saving for kids' college after we started investing in ourselves. And I'm going to give you my little airplane illustration. So, if you've ever been on an airplane, you get on, you buckle up, and the flight attendant starts giving their spiel as to, if you hit turbulence and the oxygen masks come flying down, put the mask on yourself first before you help others around you. Why do you do that? Because if you help others around you before you put on the oxygen mask, you are going to be toast, and you're not going to be able to help anybody. So just like with investing in ourselves first, in my husband's retirement and our retirement, we are making it so we will be able to help them more in the future. Because if we gave all of our kids our money, if we strictly saved just for them, we would have nothing. And if there's something that I am super passionate about, it's that when you get old and gray and can't work anymore, it is not your child's responsibility to take care of you. It is your responsibility to take care of you. If you want a surefire way to let your kids know that you love them, when you get done and you pass away with, and move on, it's I've taken care of myself and then I'm going to give you something because I was responsible and took care of myself. Now I'm leaving you with something, okay? So that is why I personally believe in saving for our retirement first over saving for our kids' college. Now, that's not saying that our kids are not important. I want the world for my kids. They are worthy, they are important, but like I said, I want to make sure that we're taken care of so then they don't have to take care of me when we get old and gray one day. So what do you do after you start continuously investing 15% of your money into retirement, potentially saving for your kids' college if that's important to you? We are going to pay off our home, okay? Get that mortgage out of the way. The last thing you want is to go into retirement and have a mortgage size payment. And let me tell you, the grass really does feel greener when you pay off your home. I remember when my husband and I paid off our home, we had to go to the courthouse. We bought it on a land contract. We were signing the deed in our name. And I just had this feeling of, oh my gosh, like this house is ours. No one can take it from us. If we decide to sell it, all the money goes to us. I couldn't believe it. And it's just a freeing feeling. And guess what? When you pay off your house, do you want to know what you have? You have money. all of the money you make is going to you, besides obviously keeping your lights on and keeping your house nice and warm. If you're in a winter state right now, your money is going to you. And if there's something that I love when you get to keep your money. And so do all of us here at Kerber Rose. We want you to keep more of your money. We don't want it going to somebody else. So on that note, that is how I got our family out of $37,000 worth of debt in such a short period of time, how we did it, the steps that we decided to take. And now I'm going to talk about ways that we saved during that process, because with an ever-changing world, you have to be creative on ways to save. I had to be creative on how we were going to pay off our debt and certain things that we could do to start saving for purchases or saving on our bills or whatnot. So I'm going to move into saving for large purchases. So what we do, I would consider, guys, Christmas is literally a few weeks away. I would personally consider Christmas a large purchase. And our family personally utilizes a sinking fund for Christmas. And if you don't know what a sinking fund is, it's basically, it could be an envelope, it could be a separate checkings account of just money you're putting away for a specific expense in the future. So January is coming too. I actually have a blog coming out at the end of December to talk about sinking funds and utilizing them for the year. January is the perfect time to start. If you've never saved for Christmas, guys, in 1 month you can start saving and then have next Christmas be one that you're utilizing a sinking fund for. So we just put, $100 to $200 away every single month for Christmas. So then when Christmas does roll around, we don't have to stress about how are we going to pay for all these presents. And us personally, we like to utilize a separate checkings account for Christmas. So my husband has a debit card. I have a debit card. If I'm in town and I'm going to Target and I see something that the girls will like or I think that he would like, I can just go buy it right on the spot, and he doesn't know what it is. He doesn't need to talk to me about it. I don't need to talk to him about it. We know that whatever is in our Christmas account is money to spend on Christmas. So that's a great way to utilize a sinking fund. Or I know a lot of people also have car sinking funds. If your car needs an oil change, if it needs brakes, they just put $500 in a sinking fund and they just take money out of that to fix the car, and then they replenish it when they're done. Another way you can save for large purchases is to save a percentage of your income. And a lot of people don't know that you can actually go to your HR at work at most places, most employers. And when you sign up for direct deposit, normally you put like 100% in your checkings account. Well, if you wanted to save over a long period of time, you can say, you know what, I want to put 5% of my money into my savings account. Here's the routing number and the account number. And then I want to put 95% in my checkings account and utilize it that way. So then it's kind of like you don't see the money being saved when you're getting paid. Another thing you can do is you can start a change jar. Now this personally, I'm going to be honest, it does not work for me. A change jar does not work. I'll get into that in a minute. But I had a good friend. The only reason I put it on here is because I had a really good friend who did a change jar. She also doesn't have children, and that'll be its own thing in a second. But she started a change jar and she saved for a year. And after a year, she had over $1,000. Like, I don't know what she was doing. She must have been picking up coins on the side of the road when she was walking and she saw a penny. Like, she was the one picking it up and putting it in her coin jar, because I could not believe it. And when she showed me the amount that she actually got, it was like $1,100 and something. I was like, I have to tell people about this, because if someone is disciplined enough to save their change, like, people, you got to know about this. What a change jar personally doesn't work for our family, because I have 4 young children with very sneaky hands who just like to take all of the money out of the change jar. They actually they get a prize at church every Sunday when they tithe. So, and we had our change jar kind of in our kitchen, and they would just like grab handfuls of it and they were like sticking it in their pockets. When I do their laundry, I find change in their pockets all the time. So our change jar at home is now a tithing jar, and our kids just know that you can take and you can put money into it as much or as little as you like. And so that's what we do at our house. So the next way we saved on our utility bill is we dialed back our thermostat 7 to 10 degrees for 8 hours a day. And this can, on average, help you save about 10% on your electric bill every year. And that's a pretty significant amount when it adds up. The second thing I learned about when I was researching ways to save is phantom energy. So phantom energy is basically when an appliance or something that uses a lot of energy in your home is plugged in, and even when it's turned off, it's still using energy. So that's crazy to me. I couldn't believe it. My husband did more research on this, but we found out that our TV was using phantom energy and our charging cables for our phones. So what we started doing was we just started unplugging those before we'd go to work, you know, in the morning, or if I had to go somewhere because I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, if I had to go to the grocery store or something, I would just unplug it when I left, and then I'd replug it back in when I came home. And when I was researching about phantom energy, I actually found out that it makes up 23% of a typical household electricity use. You guys, 23%. Unplug those chargers when you leave home. I'm telling you, you're going to save money on your utility bill. The third thing we did was we changed all of our light bulbs in our home to LED lights. Now, this is an upfront cost, but on average, after about 9 months, the energy savings will pay for itself after 9 months. So LED lights use about 20 to 25% of the energy that old incandescent lights use, which is crazy to me. I know it's a higher upfront cost, but even to this day, so we changed all of our light bulbs, like I said, a few years ago when we were going through this entire process. I have not had to change a light bulb in my home. And I'm telling the truth. So that upfront cost has definitely paid for itself in my home. I highly, highly recommend you look into changing those light bulbs. It's definitely an energy saver for you. So, ways to save. Budget-friendly family activities. If you're anything like me, I've said that I'm a spender. I love to spend money on my kids. I told you I like to spend money around Christmas. Even throughout the year, I like doing things with them. I like taking them to trampoline parks. I love taking them to the children's museum. But what I had to learn throughout this whole process is dialing back my spending and really realizing, like, what do my kids love and what do they want? And I learned that at the end of the day, my kids just wanted, I get emotional when I talk about this, but they just wanted me to spend time with them. That's it. They don't care that I spent $6 taking them to the children's museum or over $100 to take them to the trampoline park. They didn't care. They just wanted me to spend one-on-one time with them. And that is free, you guys. That is free, and that's all that they wanted. So ways to do that. You could have a staycation at home. If you're in the thick of your budget, you cannot afford to be on vacation, have a staycation. Make it a big thing. You could stay, if you really, really are a travel bug, a lot of local hotels offer a discount to residents. You just have to ask. Like, you don't know unless you ask. Hey, I live in so-and-so county. Do you offer a discount to residents? And they're either going to tell you yes or they're going to tell you no. And if they tell you yes, well, you just saved on a staycation. And the kids just love being at a pool anyway. They don't care where they are. They just want to go to the pool and play. The second thing that you can do is that our family did was we learned about geocaching, and geocaching uses GPS coordinates to find little treasures and little trinkets all around, I would say, the US, because I haven't been outside of the US, but whenever we travel, we open up our geocache app, and it uses GPS coordinates, and you can find it. And it's just like a little treasure hunt you can do with your kids. And it's basically a little treasure. It's in like a cylinder container, and you open it up, and it's basically signatures of people who found, they call it a cache, and the date that they found it. And this is super fun for my girls because they like looking at the dates, because to them, 2017 was like so long ago. So when they see that someone signed this from January 20th of 2017, my girls are looking at me, they're like, Mom, that is so long ago. And I just smile, and I smile and nod because bless their hearts, I love them so much. So the third thing we did is we park hopped. So every week we would go to a different park. Guys, this is completely free, okay? I'm like spoon feeding this to you guys. We'd go to a different park. Sometimes we would travel a couple of hours to go to like a special park. Like we have a slide park that has like ginormous tunnel slides, and we'll travel there once a year, and my kids call it the slide park. And now, because we've been to so many parks and it's such a fun thing, when we, in the summertime, when we go to town and they ask what we're doing, I'm like, we're going to go to a park. And they're like, well, which one? And they've labeled the parks by color. We have a green park, we have a yellow park, we have a red park, we have a wooden park. I mean, like it. And it's just so fun to them to explore something different, and it's something that you can do for free. And with that too, you can also have just the typical game night at home. At the time when we were on our debt-free journey, our girls were still really little. I had 3 still in diapers at the time. So game nights weren't really a thing for us, that unlike they are now. But we would have a movie night with them, and we'd make it like a really big deal. We'd make popcorn, we'd get candy, pretzels, we'd say, make your own trail mix, and we're going to sit down and we're just going to spend time together and watch a new movie. And that was a really big deal to them. We'd kind of like make it like a movie theater night at the home. We'd build a tent, we'd have a nest, we'd do all these things, and that's just something that they really looked forward to. Now that my girls are older, we are getting more into like the board games and the card games, and that's just something super, super fun that we can do together. That is completely free. And like I said, when I was going through this journey, and I just realized that they just wanted to spend one-on-one time with me. I was the only one that was worried about how much money we were spending, and that in Instagram and Facebook and the social media world tells you that you have to go spend, you know, X amount of dollars at the trampoline park at least once a month to give your kids a good time. And that's just not true. So on that note, my webinar is done, and this is where we are at now. So this is our family. This was actually very recently. This was over the summer. My husband and I celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary, and honestly, there's 1,000 photos of this particular photo, but this was the best one. And if you have young children, I feel like you can't really get anyone to have all their eyes open. I mean, even my husband's eyes are kind of closed in this photo, but this was the best one, and this is what you get. I'm very real. You get what you get when it comes to me. But where we are now, we have a changed mindset. My husband and I are working together as a team, which is the way that it should be if you're married when it comes to your finances. We're continuously investing 15% of our income into retirement. And if that hasn't taught you anything, you guys, from this webinar, that means we are on track to be millionaires. And I kind of wanted to share a quote. So I talked about our rock bottom moment at the beginning of this webinar. When I was in that rock bottom moment, I came across this quote, and it's by J.K. Rowling. And she says, rock bottom became the solid foundation at which I rebuilt my life. Rock bottom will either break you or it will change you. And I refused to let it break me and my family at that time. So the only other option I had was for it to change me. This stuff is so important. It's too important to be put on the back burner. So if you are struggling with your finances, if you have no idea where to start, I am here to tell you that we are ready to help. I'm ready to help. We have a whole team here at Kerber Rose Wealth Management who want you to win, and we are ready to help. We're ready to celebrate with you, cry with you. I've mentored with people and I'm crying with them, and then I'm celebrating with them when they're winning. We are here to be your biggest cheerleader and your biggest supporter. And my next slide here, you can see my email is down here. Please shoot me an email. I love to hear about how you guys are doing. I love to hear what you think I could do better of this webinar. If there's something you want me to talk about, maybe touch base on. If you didn't like the webinar, you guys, I want to hear about it. I want to hear your goals. I want to hear if you're winning, if you're losing, if you're struggling. Please shoot me an email with anything that you have. And on that note, Lauren, my webinar is done. So if there's any questions, I thought we had some in the queue. I can answer those.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much again, Alex. This is such an awesome webinar. And, I really hope that our attendees, really see the value of this and understand, if you're in a situation where you need financial assistance, that Kerber Rose really is here for, our clients to do anything and everything we can. With that, I know we had a few questions that were brought in. We can just go through those until we have some othered filtered. One of them is, how do you maintain a debt-free lifestyle, and are big unplanned purchases tempting at times?
Oh my gosh. This is a tough one because I'm an open book. So I'm never going to lie to anybody, but I will say that a couple years after we became debt-free, we realized we were debt-free for a solid 2 years. Now, I want to reiterate that we were debt-free for a solid 2 years when I realized that our credit score was going down. And I personally had to make a decision for our family. Like, was I going to play the game? Was I going to play this game that they tell me to play, that I have to worry about my credit score? Because long term, my husband and I would like to buy a home. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And I've heard about this thing called manual underwriting, but with the world so ever changing and the technology changing, I couldn't rely on that. I was too nervous that that wouldn't be a thing when my husband and I were ready to buy our larger home, that we actually decided to have a credit card, and we use it for gas and we pay it off every month. So is that considered debt to me? Absolutely. It is considered debt to me, but it's something that I would say is going to work in my favor and in my husband's favor when we go and we're ready to buy a home, because unfortunately, like you have to play the game. But I will say that the mindset has changed when it comes to debt. Like, I'm utilizing it in a better way than I was when I first was going with this journey where I was drowning in debt. Now it's just a tool that I use to where I still meet my money goals. So yes, maintaining the lifestyle was difficult at times, especially when when I was looking at things, if I'd go to Kohl's or to Target and I would look at a large purchase, I'd literally have to walk away from it. I'm just the type of person, I gotta walk away. Like, I can't even look at you over there because I really want you, and I'm the type of person that will just put it in my cart because I can. So I personally just had to walk away and remind myself to be content with what I had. And that's how I dealt with situations like that. So
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. There is another question here. Is there such thing as good debt?
that's a tough one too. I actually get asked that more often than not. Good debt versus bad debt. Personally, in my personal opinion, I think all debt's bad. I think it's bad, bad, bad. Stay away, far away, run away, as far away as you can get. But unfortunately, we live in a world where we kind of have to utilize it, right? Like, if we want to keep a good credit score and things like that. So what I would say is, it to be considered a good debt is an asset that goes up in value. Like, when people have a mortgage, I'm not getting mad at you. Everyone has a mortgage. There's very few people in this world that can pay cash for a house, and I would consider that good debt to have, because it's an asset that's going to go up in value. Bad debt, which I know I just got done talking about credit cards, but if you do not have the discipline to pay that off every month, a credit card is really bad. Really bad, because a lot of people see that they have a balance on there. They're like, oh, I have a $3,000 max on my credit card. I'm just going to go spend more. Like, they traditionally spend more than the way they would if they just used their debit card cash. So if you're not disciplined, I would stay away from the credit cards, especially things like Kohl's, TJ Maxx. I mean, they secretly jack up the interest rates on those. So if you can just stay far, far away from those. I know that 30% savings is super tempting, but cut that baby up and get rid of it, because that is really, really bad debt.
Awesome. And then we do have one more question. How does it feel to have passed your 65 on the first try?
Oh my gosh. I have a feeling that I know who asked me that in the queue. That's super sweet. I felt really good. I worked really hard with anything in my life. You work really hard at something and you're going to get rewarded for that. You work really hard paying off your debt, you're going to get rewarded for that. You work really hard on studying and getting that bachelor's degree, you're going to get rewarded. Like, that is just the mindset that I have with my life, and that this financial journey has kind of taught me that if you work hard, put your boots in the ground, you're going to get rewarded. So yes, it feels good now that it's done, but I feel like my work has just started too. Like, now I'm in a whole new world, the advisor world, where I feel like a fish out of water, and I'm soaking up everything my higher ups have about the subject, and just really utilizing them to my advantage to learn about the subject. So that's a fun question.
All right, and then we do have one more question that was just published. It says, thanks for sharing your journey to date. The airplane analogy is nice. How do you deal with older kids that want to spend money to buy things and will attempt to wear you out until you cave?
Wow. Well, if my personality doesn't tell you anything here, like I don't cave. Like no is no. And actually, I have a blog about teaching your kids how to spend money. I would highly encourage you to go and read that particular blog on what to teach kids about money. But I do have a scenario here. After we became debt free and we did all the things, we saved and took all of our kids to Disney World, which is a good pretty penny, by the way. And my Nana gave each of our daughters $50 to spend at Disney World, which you guys, that buys you like a piece of candy. Okay, that literally buys you a piece of candy at Disney World, $50. Okay, you can't even buy the headbands anymore. That's not a thing. But we gave all of them the $50 that their Nana gave them and said, this is what you have to spend, and that is it. And my first two daughters went and they spent it right away. They like went in the very first gift shop and they were like spending all like the little things they have. And then my other two daughters were like, whoa. Once we don't have this anymore, like it's gone. And they almost were on like the opposite end of the extreme where they didn't want to spend it because they wanted to keep it. But spending is a good thing, right? All within a balance. So what I would say is that you got to really grow a backbone when it comes to our kids, and caving in isn't doing anything for them. Because in the real world, when they move out of your home, when they've spent their paycheck, that's gone. Like you can't go to your employer and say, hey, I spent all my money. Can I get some more? They're going to look at you and say, yeah, in 2 weeks' time, because that's when you're paid. So do your kids a favor and say no. When the money is gone, tell them it's done. It's hard at first because you hear a lot of tears. Like when our girls spent their $50 right away at Disney World, they were crying and they were really upset. And it's hard for us. It's hard for my mama heart. It's hard for their dad to see them like that. But I think they're going to remember that experience for the rest of their life. And they're going to say, oh, okay, well, when my money's gone, it's gone. That is a very, very, very important concept that I preach that we have to teach our kids about. So if you want to know more on that subject, go read my blog on what to teach kids about money. It's a really good one. And so that's where I would lead them to.
Thanks for sharing that, Alex. It kind of triggered a good memory for me too, when I was younger and stuff, always asking for money or, asking for new toys or whatnot. And I would say my parents had a very good balance of knowing when it was okay to cave and, when to be a firm no. So I definitely appreciate them for that. They taught me a lot of really good money management skills throughout the years. So thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, of course. It's a hard one, but it's a good one, right? I hope that my kids have a positive experience when they talk about that in the next 20 years. Obviously, right now, they're still pretty mad. Like, and we went to Disney World last year. They're like, I remember that time. And I'm like, well, I'm really sorry, but I'm really doing you a favor here.
Right, yeah.
So.
All right. Well, if you want to wait a couple minutes to see if any more questions pop up in the queue. If you have any last minute things, Alex, that you'd want to touch base on or think you missed during the presentation?
Not really. I mean, my email is there and I always want to hear about you winning. Are you losing? Are you winning? Do you need a cheerleader? Do you need someone? Please email me because I want to know. I love cheering people on. I love hearing people win with money. I feel like that's a super taboo subject because when you talk about winning with money, people are thinking like, oh, you're stuck up or oh, you're this or oh, you're rich or oh, you're that. Well, no, if you're winning with money, you're working hard and you're doing something right. And that should be celebrated. So if no one's willing to celebrate you, know that I am willing to celebrate with you. So I want to hear about it.
Absolutely. Well, I think that will commence our webinar then. So thank you everyone for attending today. We really appreciate your time here spent with Alex to learn more about her financial wellness journey. We will be providing the recording after the webinar with the presentation slides at a later date. So just keep an eye out for your email for that. But again, thank you so much for being here with us today, and we hope you learned some really valuable financial wellness tips with Alex.
Yes, thank you guys so much for joining. This is my bread and butter. It's something that I love to do, so it really means a lot to me that you guys even signed up to attend my webinar. So thank you.
All right, thank you everyone. Have a great evening.